Hey, what's up? GW coming to you live. Hey, I normally don't get on here on a Friday, but there was a major entertainment story that I missed, and it happened on July 5th, and that is the tragic news that director Richard Donner has passed away at the age of 91. Now, some of you might not know him or know his work. He did the Superman movies. He did Superman 1 and 2, I believe, maybe even 3. But he also did the Lethal Weapon franchise, which were very awesome movies. And a lot of fans, including myself, first met him on a film that I hold dearly in my heart called The Goonies. The cause of death has not been revealed yet, but him and his wife had a production company called the Donner's Company. And when you look back at his work, like I said, The Goonies was it for me. I know that even the Supermans were pretty awesome, and Lethal Weapon I saw when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I love that movie. And if you guys have not checked out Lethal Weapon, if you're just new to the action genre, you might want to give it a check out, because it is one of the most stellar action films you will ever see, and it's also a buddy cop movie as well. Stars Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, and the first one had Gary Busey and Yaphet Kotto as the evil guys, if you remember right. Lethal Weapon 2 saw the trio of Riggs and Murtaugh battling terroristic Germans, if you will. The third one, Riggs and Murtaugh are on the trail of people making cop killer bullets. It's pretty cool. And in Lethal Weapon 4, which was the last film of the franchise, we saw Riggs and Murtaugh taking on a Japanese gang. It was pretty sweet. But definitely look that up. Superman movies were pretty awesome. The first one, whenever I was growing up, I thought was pretty boring. But a lot of people hold that film dear. And the second one I missed, and apparently it was pretty awesome. The third one is where I came in and I love. The third one, they actually turned Superman bad, and he does things like, rip a hole in an oil tanker. He straightens out the Leaning Tower of Pisa, just all kinds of stuff. And Gene Hackman was in it, Richard Pryor was in it, and it was about Gene Hackman's character Lex Luthor trying to control weather by using a satellite. It was pretty awesome. But The Goonies is where it was for me with Richard Donner. I always associate his name with that film simply because in the introduction, you see a skull and a crossbone slam against a black screen and says a Richard Donner production, The Goonies. And that, for me, was a statement. That is something that is burned into my head every day. And the one tragic thing, other than Richard Donner dying, was the fact that for years after The Goonies, and I've talked about this on other videos, the fans have clamored for a sequel. And every time they were at a convention, Richard Donner and Corey Feldman were the spokespeople. They said, look, it will happen. Richard Donner himself is quoted as saying, if I come up with a good script, it will happen. Sadly, we may never get to see a sequel to Goonies. Now, there was a proposed sequel, and it was going to be that the Goonies were all grown up. Their kids were going to follow in their footsteps and hunt down a mysterious treasure. In that situation, they would avoid traps, be on the run from a criminal gang. Just like the first film, it would be a rehash. Only the Goonies would get roped in, the original Goonies would get roped in to doing the same thing. I know for years Corey Feldman has also spearheaded that and said, look, it will get done. It will get done. Well, without Donner directing, if it does get made, it's going to hopefully be awesome, but without his directional touch, I don't see it as impressive or heartwarming or nostalgic as the first film. That being said, I'm really saddened that he died. He was one of my favorite directors, especially the Lethal Weapon. I can't even talk today. The Lethal Weapon franchise were pretty awesome, and those are films that are timeless to me. Because I love film, I love action movies, I love horror movies, and I love comedy movies. On the flip side of that, Bill Cosby has just been released, from jail, and I don't have an opinion about this. And I heard on the news this morning he wants to do a comeback tour, and I would imagine it's probably going to be like the Charlie Sheen or Roseanne Barr, Andrew Dice Clay tour that happened a year and a half ago. He's probably going to tell some jokes, and he's probably going to tell some prison stories, all in the PG vein. If he comes out with an attitude, that would surprise me. But I don't look for it to happen. I look for America to turn on him. So I don't know if a comeback tour would be the proper way to go for Mr. Cosby. People asked me, Greg, do you think he's innocent or guilty? You know what? And I don't know. There is a comedy bit about Spanish Fly that he did years ago that's pretty eerie in nature. And you wonder if maybe he did get sucked up in the glamour. Maybe he did things that he shouldn't have done. Maybe he put his finger in the gelatin, but we don't know. I'm not going to speculate. So there's that. And you know what? I'm sick and tired of rain, guys. I really am. Every time I turn around, my yard's going to be floating. I'm going to have sailboats out there cruising around. But yeah, I missed the Richard Donner thing. I also missed giving you guys a movie review. July 5th, we just stayed home, here, and we ate too much. We were just burnt. We didn't want to do anything. So, other than that, let's see what else is going on that I can quickly talk about. There is a film on Netflix. It's a new horror film. It's an anthology. I forget the name of it, but apparently it's pretty awesome. I'm going to check that out. I'll let you guys know. You guys probably know what it is. I haven't been keeping track. Yeah, I got nothing after that, guys. But yeah, I wanted to do a tribute to Richard Donner the other night. And when I read it, I was saddened and I was shocked. I'm like, okay, whoa, what happened here? And cause of death has not yet been revealed. And I wouldn't doubt that it's linked back to COVID. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't doubt it. It'd probably be some COVID-related illness. And it's just sad because the guy, when you watch his films, he had a lot of talent. And I was watching this thing on YouTube too about how Steven Spielberg had original idea for Jaws. Now, maybe you guys heard this, maybe not, but I'm going to talk about this real quick, and then we'll do a movie review probably tomorrow. In the movie Jaws, toward the end of the film, Quint talks about the USS Indianapolis and how a tiger shark starts terrorizing the men in the water. That story was hinted on. As they were talking about it, Steven Spielberg stepped back from the director lens, and then Jaws 2 happened, and it was just a rehash of the first film with, people on sailboats having a good time as opposed to 4 people on the Orca. Well, after the embarrassment that was Jaws 3, Spielberg actually pitched the idea to save the Jaws franchise from where it is right now today. That story was going to be about the men on the USS Indianapolis and how Quint survived, and that would explain why Quint was such a likely candidate for the shark hunter in that film. Sadly, that film was never made, and that is why the franchise is where it is. But if you go back and look at it, maybe that film could have saved, embarrassment of the movie franchise. Now, whenever I was little, I saw Jaws 4 in a theater. I thought that was the greatest thing. However, common sense never kicked in, because when you're 6 or 7 and you're watching that movie in a movie theater, you don't care. You just want to see somebody get chewed up by the shark. And that shark was menacing. That shark was more frightening looking in that film than I think other than in the first one. The first one, he was menacing. This one, it was a little bit grislier, and even the kills were a little bit more bloodier. I think that's what did it, is they added the blood. But then you realize, you watch that film and you go, shark in the Bahamas. No, that doesn't work, because sharks don't live in warm water. Therefore, you take the logic out of the film. You basically have an hour and a half of Universal BS thrown at you. Unless you count Mario Van Peebles, which he was cool in that film. Lorraine Gray was awesome too. But you take those things out and you have a lifeless movie. And it doesn't make sense. And even to this day, you know, watching it again and taking it all in for what it is, it's really a very, very low point. I would put it below Jaws 3 at that point. Both of them are pure garbage, but Jaws 4 is just a ridiculous concept, and whoever at Universal thought that would stick. It worked, but when your logic kicks in, like I said. So maybe a story about the USS Indianapolis. I would like to see that. I would also like to see Jaws redone. You know, give it a remake. Everything else is getting remakes. Why not give Jaws a good remake? You know, put the fear in people that are swimming right now, which is hard to do after the Meg. I realize that. But, you know, if done right and done dark enough and horrifying enough and action-packed, you could have a hit. Problem is that you can never recapture lightning in a bottle, ladies and gentlemen. So, R.I.P. Richard Donner. And I will see you guys this weekend with another movie review.